Hello, good morning. Happy Friday. So some fun news. I was looking through Discord this morning. Apparently, U 0.21 released. I haven't had a chance to go look at what changed. So that's probably going to be a future thing that we do. It's not really much I can do about that right now, but apparently there's some breaking changes. So if you are building U apps, that might be something to look into. I'll probably look into it this weekend a little bit and sort of see what they did, and if I want to create like an addendum to the old U course or do something with that. Asitsu, hello. How are you doing today? All right, so we got everything here. We're continuing on today with CRUD for SQLx. All right, so yesterday or last night, we finished this section up for the insert. So next up is going to be the get one. Xanax, hello. How are you doing today? Esitsu, you decided to store your data in SQLite instead of JSON, so now you're using SQLx. Nice. How are you enjoying it? Are you liking it? And you're doing good, Xanax? Good. Excellent. All right, let's see. Get one. So, when we're querying, so when we're getting data from, yeah, you let me know once you have done more than setting up a connection. Were you able to see? I mean, do I have the connection stuff? I don't know if I do. Well, the quick start is actually pretty good at getting a connection stuff set up. So, well, if you have trouble, we can troubleshoot together. Sort of try to figure it out. When we're getting data from um, uh, using SQLx, we'll be able to use the query as macro. As we'll be expecting that model, that games model. You're trying to develop a CLI and a GUI using iced in parallel. I have not used iced. It for a while that was on my list, but then I think instead of iced, I started using GGEZ, and then I just never got around to checking out iced. If I remember correctly, iced was no, it was a different one. It wasn't iced. One of them was supposed to be based a little bit on P5.js, and that I was interested in it because of that. But then I went with GGEZ, which was also based on processing, but sort of like in a very roundabout way. It was very interesting. But Iced has been on my list, but I just never got around to looking at it. All right, well, this might be just really simple. Should I switch this around? Should I have my code on the left and the article on the right? I feel like maybe I should do that, which I think I can do that with this. Okay, so we want queries and we want to do a get pub async. Why are you upset now? Because the database is not running. Oh, interesting. Okay, so you're saying error communicating with database. Okay, so because I rebooted my computer overnight, we need to start the database. So by doing that, and we save again, and we're good to go. You might have to go with eGUI instead, depending upon how it works out. I've also heard a lot of people using eGUI and been pretty happy with eGUI, so I wouldn't be surprised. Oftentimes, whenever I want a GUI type system, every time I think about it, like, okay, I can make like a native application, and then I realize that it would be easier and more portable for me to use a web technology and then just make it in Tori. And so then it's like, okay, well then I guess it's just Tori and a web framework for now on, forever. Because like it's so rare that I would need something with the performance of native. Like most of what I'm doing doesn't need that kind of performance. And if I do, it's going to be a game engine then. Because usually, like if I want that, it's 99% of the time it's going to be some kind of visualization or a game or something else that I'm doing, and that's what it is. Ooh, Zilby's here. All right. What are we doing? A pub async function. Let's do get one. We're not going to take in a game. We are going to return a result game though. All right. So can I do this? I wonder if I can. No, let's get out once. So let's do game equals SQLx. Okay, we're gonna do query as. So the first one, let's grab a game out. Let's see if this works. We get our game. Um, did I not see this before? That's interesting. It's also wrong, but that's interesting that it's Rust Analyzer is trying to give type hints inside. Oh, because it's query as. I was gonna say like it's a macro. How can it work? It doesn't know how to do that kind of stuff. As a developer, you get that, but as a user, I don't want a hungry web browser for each of my apps. I mean, as a user, I also don't realize that I have a hungry web browser for each of my apps. So there is that. All right, so we're gonna do select star from games where ID is equal to, oh, we do need the ID. So ID is gonna be a I32. $1. So that's gonna limit 1. So then we're gonna have pass in the ID here. And then you are going to fetch 1 and did the pool await question mark. Now, are you happy with this? So we return okay and the game. Okay, I think that yeah, that's super simple. Uh, Zivro, Zivro, Zivzero. Hello, good morning. Why would you program in Rust when there are much better alternatives nowadays, such as going outside and riding a bicycle? Although riding a bicycle doesn't have its own package manager yet. I mean, that's true. I think we're having to wait until bikes have like a much better ecosystem and a big sort of like uh, backlog. I don't know what the right word catalog of packages that I could just add on with no effort. Also, I'm not a bike programmer, so I don't know how to like put them together. I'd have to hire somebody else to do that, and I'm really like I guess I'm just cheap with that. So you know what? I'll probably just buy a pre-made bike app and I'll just run like use that until it breaks and then I'll just go buy another one. That works, right? Also, good morning. How are you doing today? Yeah, you did get me in the first half when I was reading that before I finished reading it. That was good. Let's see. Like I hope I'm able to like respond to those with like semi-serious tones of voices that way it like adds to the humor. All right, so if I do that, now I want, let's go to main. And so let's stop inserting the game. And now we're going to do queries. All right, because that resizes. Queries, get one. So the previous one was like what? And one. All right. I think it was one. So get one. Hand it reference to the pool. Hand it one. And that we let game equals we await and we can expect error getting one game, and we can debug game. Okay, so we should be able to run this. Oh, I was like, why don't my Zealous things works? Because I locked it. Cargo run. There we go. We get the one game out. All right, so perfect. Let's add this in. No, this is kind of behind. So I'll just move this down. So we're starting down here. All right, so beginning this back. All right, so here, notice that despite the ID field, or the ID field of the game being an option, the query as macro is able to associate, it's able to fill, it's able to uh, put the data from the query into the object just fine. Uh, um, since we're only getting one thing back, we're using the fetch one method. Don't forget to, did I say to comment out the other one? I did not. Okay, so after running this, don't forget to comment out the insert. Insert that we don't add the same game over and over to the database. Okay, so we got that. We don't need to say comment out. All right, so then all that's left is to call the get one function from main. Okay, so we got that. After, so like after running the program, we get the game we previously inserted, printed out. So that would be this one. I have these warnings. Let's get rid of the warnings. Wait. You don't have any warnings there? Hold on. Dead. Oh, insert code is dead. Yeah, insert game is never used. Let's fix that. Also, it's over here that I would get that. Unused variable game. Right, I don't use that game there, so I don't need you either. Okay, it's fine. Unused models game. Let's actually just comment that out. And then function insert game is never used. Okay, yeah. So let's allow dead code in here. So this one to allow dead code. That will take away that warning. Perfect. Okay, and then there we go. That's what we got. Okay, so we got our one. After running this, let's actually we don't need to comment that out because, well, it probably helps out. So let's comment this out. 404 not found. Hello, how are you doing this morning? Let's comment this out. So we have a clean console. The next, the get many. All right. Get me. Okay, so getting many things is very, so let's scroll way down. Getting many things is very similar to one thing. In this case, we'll not use a where statement, and we'll use the find, I think it's find many. So we'll do get all, take in the pool. We won't take anything else in. We'll get a result, and this is probably going to be a vec of game. And so we can do let games equals, okay, so we're going to do a query as again. We'll bring in, I think it's going to be game, but I might have to give it a vec of game here. I'm curious about that. I'm curious about that. All right, so this is going to be select star from games, and then that's it. Look at that. It's a map. Oh, wait. It's map until I do a fetch all. Yeah, collect into a vector. So do a pool, await, question mark. Yep, we don't have to give it a game. So then we're just gonna return an okay and games. And that makes it happy. Okay, so in this case, we'll use a where, we'll not use a where statement. It's actually, we'll not use a where statement, and we'll use the fetch all method to get all of the games. Once again, we can grab. Okay, so we can get the. We can call this. It's from the main function. And print output to see the result. Which I haven't done that yet. Okay, get all. Come on, just want these. So let games equals queries get all. Cool. We'll await, expect. And then we'll print that out. Simple. Stacking, hello. You went to go type good morning, then you got a bad phone call. Now you really hate Rust. Oh no. A bad phone call. That doesn't sound good. I'm sorry about that. So hopefully it's not terrible news. Okay, so do cargo run, and then we get all of these out, and then we're good to go. Your car is in the shop, and they said after 10 years, it's starting to really rust away. So now they need to do patch jobs. Kind of ironic of a phone call. Yeah. You know, it's a good thing that the language is based on the mushroom and not like that kind of oxidation that ruins cars. So I'm sorry about that, but maybe you should drive over mushroom patches more often. Also, sorry about making light of your car situation. That's not good. Um 10 years is a pretty good is a like I had a few cars that didn't last to 10 years, and that really sucked. I kind of want my cars to all last at least 10 years. I know the pain of living in a snowy state. Yeah. We don't so in Boulder, where I don't live, they don't use salt at all. They use sand. Which is great. Cars don't rust there quite as much, but everywhere else they use salt. So then, if you, it doesn't matter in the end because if you want to drive from city to city, you're going to get salt all over the bottom of your cars. So I was like, okay, this is gonna be great, and it was like, oh yeah. Uh, and I had my boss at my job. He bought a car from Canada, and when it was delivered, um, he had thought he had done proper due diligence with it, but he didn't really realize what like that meant. Like even living in Colorado, he was like, oh, it can't be that much worse than here, right? The entire bottom of the car was had a lot of rust on it. It sucked. He had to do a ton of work to get it basically working like properly again. That sucked. Okay, so oh right, I want like a notice in here. So here, notice that even though we're getting the we're getting a vector, I guess like getting a vec of game from query as. We only need to pass in game. Uh, we only need to pass in game. All right, once again, we can call this familiar function and print out its output to see the result. Okay, so then, all right. I don't know if I need to, I don't know if I actually need to remind everybody to comment everything out. Or I could just do this one over and over again. Let's just do that. Okay, updates. All right, updating is finally another interesting one again. So let's comment. I guess let's not comment you out. We'll wait. Okay, queries. I'll throw in the allow dead. I almost just said allow undead, which doesn't seem right. All right, so we're gonna have a pub async function update. So we'll have our pool. We'll have an ID, and then I probably want to take in. Okay, so we want a the game to update. So updated game, which would be a game. Now I can return a result, and I probably don't really care about the result itself, right? Because it's only going to tell me the number of rows that are updated. So I don't really need to care about that. So then we'll throw that at the beginning, and we'll just do our query like that. All right, so our query is going to be update. I now need to remember how to do an update in SQL. Update. Update, and then it's table name, so games. And then it's I think it's set. It's set, and then what we're going to be doing. So I refuse to ever set the ID to something, even though the database would let us do that. We're going to set name. Is it like set name equals something? Or is it like set like that, where it's ooh, I see, this is the thing where, like, even though I do this at work, I just never remember it, and I just constantly either look it up or I save snippets for myself. So let's look it up really quickly. I don't know, like SQL is one of those languages where, like, I just never really truly memorize the syntax. I just sort of I know in general what to do. I just forget the syntax constantly. It's probably because I'm not in there every single day. All right, let's do Postgres SQL update. All right, so it's going to be update, table name, set. Okay, so it's going to be column name equals, and then something. And then I can do where. Oh, and you can do returning. Yeah, use it or lose it. In my case, it's use it and lose it because I don't use it enough. So it's okay. So set name is equal to $1. So name equal to $1. It is comma, right? I That's what that means, right? It's like, oh, I need a set parentheses. So it's parentheses like that. Name is equal to $1. And then it's just repeated columns, right? I think that's what this means. Repeated the columns. So then platform is equal to $2. And then we'll do game.name, game.platform. We will... Now, if I don't care about the return, I can use execute. What are you upset about? Cannot find it. Okay, we need to import you. Kukma, hello. Good morning. SQL must have some builder pattern to choose what keyword you can use after another keyword, like a flutter scaffold. Um. Oh, it's like a builder pattern with SQL. That are there really like it would be interesting. I think the problem is for me is I've never actually used good tooling with SQL. Because even in like usually when I'm writing queries, I'm usually not like writing queries like this in code. Although if I start using SQLx, that might change. I think I often end up writing raw SQL code in like yeah, it's usually like you set right at once if it's in a code base and then you forget about it and then it just works for a long time. Or you connect to the database as a one-off thing and write like a bunch of SQL code and then you're done again because it's a one-off. So it's not something you're going to be repeating over and over again. And if you are, you're writing a script to do it automatically. So yeah, like no matter what, SQL is uh relegated. It's never going to be anything more than just done every once in a while. Ooh, I know that you can do execute. You can hand it the pool and then await question mark. Can I not? Error returned from database. Syntax error at or near equal sign. Okay, so it doesn't like one of these. So that's really cool. So I'm getting this is my static checking here. So syntax error at or near and equals. So it doesn't like that. Okay, so set. Oh, column name equals that. Okay, so fine. I don't think we have that. I think it's gonna be something like um is it set? Now, okay, so not that. Cannot find value game in the scope because I have updated game. There we go. That's what it was. All right, so it's update games set name equals one, comma. So the I misread this as what to do when it's really this. Oh, SQL documentation. Use something like dbeaver to help write the queries and then never touch it again in your life. Yeah, that feels like what I do, except without. I don't use dbeaver. I've been using on a because I have a work Mac too. I use Postico. Also, I found SQLx does not support binding into anonymous PLP GSQL function. I think because SQLx using $sign operator for binding. Oh, right, because like this is technically not correct SQL syntax. So it's like not actually real. So if I like I can't just take this and hand it to yeah, I can't take this and hand it to like something else and it won't figure what it is. That's gonna suck for tooling because when I eventually get the ability to say like, hey, can you like properly um also yeah here I getting no, I think it's just lies. Um, I'm not going to get proper syntax highlighting on this ever because it's not real SQL. Is that right? Or am I going to have to like look at, or are we going to have like a SQLx syntax highlighter, which kind of sucks. But okay, we do that. You're happy. You're running. Um, the solution is create function, then call it, but it's 2 queries. Yeah, who wants to do that? We're lazy. Yeah, that would have been fun. Thank you, Isitsu. Yeah, no where clause. Everything becomes the same game now. Where ID is equal to ID to dollar three. Three. That would that would have been a junior mistake right there. Okay. All right, so we do that. Then we can run our update, and so let's go into main. Okay, so um, let's let's get. Okay, let's do this. My brain just suddenly like forgot how to select multiple lines for a second there. Just update them all. Yeah, of course. Like all games are Starfield now. Like there is no other game in the world. They're all that one game or whatever game you want. That's the only game. Doesn't matter how many you had. And then you get to go find out how good your backups are. Okay, so we're gonna get one game. I'm going to make this mutable. And going to not do that. So we're gonna say game dot name is equal to, so that's one, so that's Starfield. So get Starfield game from the database. So then we're gonna like let's do changing the it's not Starfield anymore. What's another oh, the other major game that came out like right around the same time as Starfield would be Baldur's Gate 3. So like that's we actually got Baldur's Gate 3. Okay, so game name is Baldur's Gate 3. 2 owned. It's still on the same platform. So we're just gonna set that there. And finally, then we can update the game. So update the game in the database. So we're gonna do queries. Update. We have a reference to the pool. We have the new game. That's the ID. So we want game.id and then the game. So actually, that's a good point. I don't need the ID. I could just do that, and that would be fine. I like that a lot more. Let's do that. So this would be updated game.id. Okay. So then when we run this, we're not going to have a debug anymore. No, not all of that. Come on, that. And let's see. Oh, we have to await you and expect. So error, error updating game. Oh, you know what? Let's get the game again. So now I did the thing where I did space Y instead of Y again. Okay, so get the newly updated Baldur's Gate game from the database. So that's get one back out again. So getting one game, and then we'll debug game. Okay, there we go. This is a way for us to like test this. So if I run this, there we go. We now have game one is Baldur's Gate 3 now in the database. Perfect. And variable does not need to be mutable. Oh, right, this one here doesn't need to be mutable. Okay. Okay, no warnings, no errors. We're good to go. Okay, so update. For the update function, we're going to atomically update the game. Atomic updates generally mean everything, like the entire object, so like the entire row in the database. However, we aren't going to allow the ID to be updated. Let's see. Okay, so then we'll write this. Queries, grab you. And there you go. Okay, so since okay, so by default, now we could potentially like grab back the number of things updated and check that, but I don't really care about that. So so by default, the database like an update. So SQL update. So SQL update statements will return the number of rows affected. Since we are confident that this will work due to the static type checking, so the static checking, validation, we're going to run it and not catch the output. When we don't care about output, we can use the execute method. Don't forget, the oh, I don't need to put that there. Okay, so we do that. To test this, uh, we can run a query to get one item, one game from the database, update it, and then get it again to verify that it was changed. Okay, so that's main, and then that's going to be this one. Okay, so the one thing, I'm just going to remove this get all from in here. Okay, so there we go. And then finally, this prints out the changed game to the terminal. Which actually I can just do that. And there we go. Okay. Arkin Soul, Arkin SSL. Hello. How are you doing today? Okay, so we have okay, so that is update. Next up, delete. Deleting. Okay, so deleting from the database is very similar to an update. I don't know if I really need to like say anything at that point. It's more of the same. So we probably just want an ID. It's gonna be I32. Return a result. That. And then we can do just a simple query again. All right, so we're going to do a delete from games where ID is equal to $1. And we'll pass in the ID. That's it. We'll execute, pass in that pool, we'll await, and question mark, and we'll do that. And that should be happy. Thanks, SQLite, for the nullable primary key. That's have you used SQLite much, Isitsu? There's several weird little gotchas in the SQLite world. And every time that I use it, I keep on like either finding more of them or remembering like, oh right, oh you've never used it. Okay, so yeah, there's a SQLite is like really light. Like it's for example, fun fact, you can set a varchar to have a certain number of character limitation in SQLite, and it doesn't care because it doesn't have the ability to like set to like okay, it's only 10 characters. It's like no, it's essentially like text. Um, it's just little things like that will get you. For the most part, they don't really like hurt anything. It's just more of like you can't use SQLite and then expect to be able to enforce some of those SQL things. Like you can't test it with SQLite essentially. But SQLite is great for like local running of stuff. Like if you want like a tari file or like a local program and like have a database style thing with connection to it, it is perfect for that. It is surprisingly fast too. Okay, let's also, before I forget, we'll throw a log dead code on you. Okay, so you're happy there. Let's comment out everything, and then we'll figure out what we want to keep. Okay. Now you just need to figure out how to store a UUID. I mean, that would just be in. Oh, can you make ID another type? Like you can set ID to be a string or I guess like text or varchar or whatever it is. And then I think that would work, right? Okay. Zilby when he's laying like this is like super. Oh, you set your ID to blob. Okay, yeah, it doesn't support that kind of thing. But you can store a UUID as just text, as just a string. And that should work just fine. I need to get your full head in here. All right, delete. Let's okay, we'll get the newly updated Baldur's Gate game from the database. And then we'll delete it. Actually, I don't need to get it, do I? So we'll do something like delete the Baldur's Gate game from the database. So we'll run queries. Delete. Cool. And then 1. Okay, so we do that. And then we can grab the game again. So get oh, let's get all now. So let's then update games. Then oh, if I save, that extra line goes away anyways. Okay. Let's get all the games. Well, that was fun. That blink was the power blipping out for a second. Sylvie, it's okay. Luckily, my UPS saved the computer and the stream and everything else. That's cool. The documentation online suggested to use blob for SQLite, and a SQLx doc seemed to suggest blob is supported for UUID. Oh, interesting. Okay. Huh. Well, I haven't played around with blob. I've not really used blobs very much in databases. Because usually when I needed something like more blobby, it ended up being just like JSON type or something like that with Postgres. So I ended up just not using it. We have some in MySQL, but again, like I've not really needed it. And then I always just stored our UUIDs as text, or not text, varchars. But yeah, interesting. Let's get all the games to verify that the first one, that Baldur's Gate, has been deleted. Okay, so games, we get all that stuff. Then, okay, so you're all good here. So let's see, then let's run it. And there we go. We don't have any more games. Perfect. Okay, so Rust. Okay, so we need get you. Then we can set up main address to delete the game with ID 1. Then query for all games and print out the result to verify that we now only have one game in the database. So it's still Rust. On to main and do that. And then finally, okay, so then so and here's the output when we run the code. Okay, there we go. We only have one game. Only have one game left in the database. All right, so this is like we have. So I guess like what have we done? Not that. I wanted that. We have successfully. So we have implemented basic CRUD. So that'd be create, read, update, delete. search for space, insert, nope, space, insert, comma. Yeah. Update and delete. We have implemented basic CRUD, create, read, update, and delete for our games database. This shows off the basics of how to use the query macros, and how we can the query macros. Let's see. In our real code, we won't be hard coding the data in the main function, but the queries will work the same nonetheless. Okay, and then I don't have anything to show down there. So there we go. All right, 808. So I think we're good to go here. Let's read through this really quickly, verify that it's what we say it is, and then I don't actually know if I have time to do a full recording. I feel that this is going to be more involved recording wise. It's probably going to take like half an hour lesson. That's my guess. Oh, there's like 300 lines in here. Okay, so let's go to top. We'll just go with 1G. All right. CRUD with SQLx and Postgres. CRUD is a common acronym for create, read, update, and delete. In this lesson, we'll be learning how to do those actions in a Postgres database with SQLx. Prerequisites. Before taking this lesson, you need to know how to connect to a Postgres database in SQLx, have a Postgres database to connect to. Objectives. By the end of this lesson, you will be able to describe which query methods / macros to use, insert data into a Postgres database with SQLx, get one row of data from a Postgres database with SQLx, get all rows of data from a Postgres database with SQLx, update a row of data in a Postgres database with SQLx, delete a row of data in a Postgres database. Ooh, look at that. With SQLx. Content. Query methods and macros available to us. SQLx has several functions and macros that we can use to send queries to the database. At first glance, they all do the same thing, so it can be confusing to choose which one. Let's dive in and go through when to use which. So the answer seems to be that the methods work because they use the from row trait. However, the macro is too naive and doesn't understand because it doesn't use the trait. Wait, so you can't use the macros when you're using blobs in SQLite? That seems not great. Compile time verification. With compile time verification, the use of type overrides is currently required to make use of any user-defined types. Oh, where you do this thing where it's like ID colon user ID. Oh. I don't know how I feel about that. Oh, it's a two. Can you do the colon trick? Uh colon blob. So there was that thing that we saw that you could do. Where let's find like one of the gets. So here, if we were doing like select, there is no UUID types. There's nothing you can turn it. Oh, so okay. You can't do something like ID blob or something like that. Type blob does not exist. Okay. Yeah. It's not like it's blob. That is too bad. Okay. That is way too bad. So yeah, you can't do that because there's no type for that. I wonder if there's like a plugin for the database that adds the type, and then you can do that. I don't know enough about databases to know if I can like create a type in the database, and then it's just in there. And I especially don't know if you could do that in SQLite. SQLx has several functions and macros that we can use to send queries to the database. At first glance, they all do the same thing, so it can be confusing to choose which one. Let's dive in and go through when to use which. I believe there is, but I'm not sure how I can get that to work through SQLx. Like theoretically, maybe you can do that colon, and then it checks the database for the type. So potentially that could work. Uh, but I don't know. We can also like check that if any of you know how to create a type in Postgres, we can play around with that. Functions. SQLx has the following functions available to create and run queries. So we have query, query as with, query scalar with, query with. You may notice that documentation for these methods, let's just call them functions, are very sparse. That's because they don't statically check your SQL queries at compile time and instead just run them at runtime. This removes some of the protections that the macros give you. Due to the above, it's recommended to use the macros whenever possible. If you do need to use one of the functions, it works very similarly to the macros. Macros. SQLx has the following macros available to create and run queries. We have the checked macros, so then there's so many macros. Checked macros. These macros all statically check the SQL at compile time. This means that the input types are checked at compile time and the output at runtime. So, query. Let's put like a bang in front of them. Okay, so query. This macro will not return a type of your choosing, but rather an anonymous struct based on what the database returns. Therefore, this macro is best for when you don't care about return values like some inserts, updates, and deletes. Query as. This macro will return the resulting data into a struct of your choice at runtime. That makes it best for most cases. Query scalar. This macro will return only a single column of data. Okay. Checked file macros. These macros are exactly the same as the ones above, but get their SQL queries from a file instead of being written into the code itself. This is best when we have complex queries or just really long queries. So these are macros again, right? So here, let's search for that, insert bang. Query file as, query file scalar. Unchecked macros. The unchecked macros do exactly the same thing as their named pair above, but they don't check the input or the output. I recommend staying with the checked macros as they give us the protection that we want at compile time. Only try the unchecked macros if the checked ones aren't able to work for your situation. So let's then, these are all macros, right? Yeah. Query as unchecked, query file as unchecked, query file scalar unchecked, query file unchecked, query scalar unchecked, query unchecked. Great. Okay. Preparing the database for coding. Before we can write our code to practice CRUD with SQLx, we need to start a Postgres server and set up a database. We can start the server with the command docker. Okay, so do we have, so prerequisites have Postgres database to connect to. Okay, so is that 300 or so? No, it's above. Oh wow, I was way off. Okay. Let's see. Since I have Docker installed, let's see. Okay, so I think this will be fine. We can start the server with the command. Yeah, I think it'll be fine. Docker run -- name Postgres dev -e. Okay, so Postgres password we're setting to keyboard cat. Postgres database to SQLx tutorial. Exposing the port and using 16. Okay, perfect. For this exercise, let's create a table that will store games that we own and want to play. We'll be using the following model. So that. Okay, so we have our ID, which is a primary key. It's an int, and it's not knowable. We have a name, which is a varchar 255, not knowable, and a platform, which is a varchar 255, and it is knowable. We can then connect to the database using PSQL, and I probably can just make that lowercase, and create a table with the commands. So docker exec it postgres. What's that -d that I've got there? Oh, I missed dev. Postgres dev. Oh, wait, no. Ooh. That's weird. Okay, so apparently it like combined it into multiple lines. So docker exec it postgres dev psql. Okay, so username postgres, database SQLx tutorial. Then this new line, and then it shows us, okay, PSQL, type help for above. And then we type in, okay, so SQLx tutorial equals, and then we write in create table games, ID serial primary key, name varchar 255, not null, platform varchar 255. Okay, so that's good. Next, let's set up main.rs to connect to the database. Okay, so then finally, okay, so use PG pupil options, Tokyo main, our async main function, .env. Okay, so we load .env. Let our database URL equals. We get the database URL out of the environment variables. We create our pool, max connections, connect, await, and then expect. Okay, great. I like to create a models.rs file to store the shape of the data that matches the table. So here, okay, so derive, debug, and clone. Create a game with an ID that has an option, name, and a platform. We're making the ID an option despite being required in the database, so we can use the model when creating a new game. Let's create a file named queries.rs to store the queries for the games table. Don't forget to mod in the models and queries files in the main.rs. Let's just do in main.rs. Okay, so we do that. Finally, let's install an error handling library to allow us to use ? everywhere easily. I prefer error, but another error handling library like anyhow works just as well. So I add that. Okay, inserting into the database. Let's start by creating the object that we want to insert into the database. I'm creating this at the bottom of the main function. Okay, so that starfield equals game. ID is none. Name is starfield. Platform is Steam. Next, let's move over to the queries.rs file and create the insert game function. We'll need to take a reference to the pool and the game as arguments. Since the query can fail, we'll return a result using our error handling library. Since we have a game model with the ID as an option, we can clone it and we'll add the ID from the database in before returning. Where's my cursor? Returning it at the end. Here's is it? Nope, not that. Is it something like that? Here's the queries file so far. Okay, I think it's just like that. Rust. Okay, so use error results, use SQLx pool and Postgres. We have a creates models game. We have the insert game. Okay, so we've created the signature and the function technically is there. The next step is to write the query to insert the game into the database and get the ID back. The raw SQL for this would be insert into games, name, platform, value, starfield, Steam, returning ID. Since we don't have a type that we're getting back, we'll use the query macro to run the SQL. We'll also use the fetch one method because we're getting exactly one thing back from the database. Okay, so new game ID, okay, SQLx query. We're just using query, insert into games, name, platform, values, 1 and 2, returning ID, and then 1 and 2. So game name and platform. Fetch 1, oh wait. The new game ID is a record type, which will hold whatever returning values we've asked for. In this case, the record looks like struct record, pub ID. Okay. Be aware that the query macro will change the shape of record to match whatever is being returned by the database. All we need to do now is set the ID of the game. Set the ID of the game. And return it. Actually, we already returned it, so set the name of the game. So game ID equals some new game ID, .id, and we're done with this query. Here's what the full function looks like now. Okay, so we have that. So insert game, that, new game ID equals query, insert games, okay. I'm just sort of like spot checking to make sure that the code looks right. We've found that one section now that had a problem. Let's run the query from the main file and pass in a reference to the pool and the game. Then we can print out the returning game and see the ID that it got in the database. Okay, so we create queries insert game, pool starfield, await, expect, error inserting starfield in the database, okay, debug that. Essentially, you can insert and query data from the CLI. Now to replicate that in the GUI, nice. I mean, it should be fairly simple. Like the entire point of something like CRUD is that if you could do it in the CLI, you could do it in the GUI. You can do, well, I guess like, oh, in the GUI that you created. Never mind. I was thinking like an actual SQLite GUI, not your program GUI. Never mind. Retract everything I said. Okay, so cargo run. Okay, so we run this, and then we get the game out. Let's add one more game so we can have multiple games to get later in the get all query. Since we add a game every time we run the code, let's change the star field. Let's change the let's change the game to let's change the game. You assume that there is some complication with the calling the async code without blocking the main rendering thread. Oh, is there a problem? That's not good. Okay, so we create the game. We're now going to use Star Wars Empire at War. Some Steam. Okay, insert game. There's that. After running this, don't forget to comment out the inserts that we don't add the same game over and over to the database. All right, so we're done with that. Get one. When we're getting data using SQLx, we'll be able to use the query as macro as we'll be expecting the game's model back. Okay, so async function, get one. The pull, the ID. Okay, so we get that. Notice that despite the ID field of the game being an option, the query as macro is able to put the data from the query into the object just fine. Since we're only getting one thing back, we're using the fetch one method. And all that's left to do is call the get one function from main. Okay, so we then call that and debug it out. After funning, after running the program, we get the game we previously inserted printed out to the console. Okay, so there we go. We got it printed out. Let's comment this out so we have a clean console for the get many. Get many. Getting many things is very similar to one thing. So you like to get one thing. In this case, we'll not use a where statement. And we'll use the fetch all method to get all of the games. Okay, so get all, fetch all, okay. Notice that even though we're getting a vec game from query as, we only need to pass in game. Once again, we can call this from the main function and print its output to see the result. All right, then we print that and we get all the games out. Let's comment this out so we have a clean console for the get many. Update. So that's not true. Now this is for the update. For the update function, we're going to atomically update the game. Atomic updates generally mean the entire row in the database. However, we aren't going to allow the ID to be updated. Okay, so there we go. We're going to update, set all that stuff. By default, SQL update statements will return the number of rows affected. Since we are confident this will work due to the static validation, we're going to run it and not catch the output. When we don't care about the output, we can use the .execute method. To test this, we can run a query to get one game from the database, update it, and then get it again to verify that it was changed. Okay, so we do that, get that out. That all looks good. This printout changed the game to this printout. Okay, then I think then we'll print out the changed game to the terminal. Okay. Oh, this will. Okay, I got it. This will print out the change game to the terminal. Delete. Deleting from the database is very similar to an update. Okay, so then we can set up main.rs to delete the game with ID 1, query for all games, and print out the result to verify that we now only have one game in the database. Okay, so we do that. The shape looks right. Here's the output when we run the code. Okay. We only have one game left in the database. Conclusion. We have implemented basic CRUD, create, read, update, and delete for our games database. This shows off the basics of how to use the query macros. In our real code, we won't be hard coding the data in the main function, but the queries will work the same nonetheless. Okay, perfect. So it is 8:32. I don't have time to record. It took like 20 minutes to read through this. It's almost 500 lines long. But I don't know if you notice, I'm following this pattern that I really like in education, where like I start by like, okay, you're writing all this stuff, and more it's like, okay, well, just here's the full function, and then with like a tiny little description near the end, because it gets I guess like it gets harder as you go through, but at the same time your knowledge increases, and so you don't need me to like walk you through creating every function every single time. You only need that for the first one. That's the idea, at least. All right, let's go ahead, close that. Let's commit am. Actually, before I commit, let's move SQLx RUD to 3 recording. Okay, so ready to record video on SQLx CRUD. All right, and that's gonna be it for this morning. I'm locked. Am I locked? No, I'm not locked. I'm just using the wrong commands. Okay, so I'm good to go. I think I got everything done here, so I think we're good. So with that, let me check. Kuviman is making Pog Paint 3D. We've rated Kuviman a few times, and he's been making a an interesting Rust-based 3D paint program, which has been sort of fun to watch and see. So make it through the advertisement. Make sure he's not about to end stream. In the meantime, I am let's see, today is Friday, so I'll be streaming next week. I think I'm gonna change the schedule again next week, sort of like play around with it. Just sort of like experimentations for what I feel is best time to stream for me. So I'll post the schedule in the Twitch schedule thing on in Twitch, and then I'll also post links to that in X Twitter, X Twitter, and Discord. So if you want to keep on top of that, here's a link to Discord if you want to follow there. Otherwise, I think that's everything I've got, and then it looks like he's in the middle of stuff. So let's go ahead and set that raid. We'll do a raid to and there we go. With that, everybody have a great rest of your Friday. Have a great weekend, and I will see you all next time. Bye.